the ward, I venture out of the state, people assume I'm a Republican because I live in Texas. So that morning that we broke quorum, I said, we need to show our state, we need to show our nation, show the world that there are Democrats fighting here in Texas. And we knew it was the right thing to do early on, and we had a plan, and all of us stuck together, and we did it. And so I'm so proud to represent you in the House, because we represent all of you, and it is a collaborative effort. It takes all of us elected officials to work together, and thank you for having me here today. Thank you, Bethel.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'm Ron Reynolds, State Representative from District 27, all the way from Fort Bend County. We are fired up, and I don't have to say much because my colleagues have laid it out already, but I want to thank Beto for his energy, his fire. Let's give it up for Beto. Let's give it up for Mayor Turner, Commissioner Ellis, all of our leaders, but more importantly, you, the grassroots community. You are the wind beneath our wings. You are the ones that give us the strength to do what we do. So you all deserve the appreciation. We're not going to let them take us back. We are not going to let us take us to a dark day in this country. As Jarvis said, when there are poll taxes and literacy tests, literally, Jim Crow 2.0 is being re-envisioned in the 87th legislative session, and we are not going to let them disenfranchise communities of color, black and brown people, and disabled. We will not let that happen on our watch. Not without a fight. We're sick and tired of being sick and tired. We're sick and tired of not having equal pay for equal work, Medicaid expansion, a livable wage, climate change. We believe in science. We believe Black Lives Matter. We believe in the LGBTQ community. And we are going to turn Texas blue. There's only way that we are going to turn back the evil, Republican, far-right conspiracy theories. There was no voter fraud. That is the big lie perpetrated by Donald Trump, and we will not allow it to happen. So thank you all. We feel the energy. We're going to continue to fight. We're going to speak truth to power, and we're going to make sure that we do not go down without a fight. Thank you, and God bless you. Peter Morales Shaw, a fantastic freshman legislator.
I could feel the energy from like a block down. I just wanted to say that, you know, it's because of you all, the movers and shakers of our community, that we have lawmakers in Texas that are willing to turn their back on laws like SB 7. Because that law, like I'm sure everyone here already said, would have turned the clock back on our voting rights. It would have criminalized innocent people. It was a bad law. It would have made perfectly good elections into bad elections. And they're just now revealing, which they probably have already spoke about, how bad that law really was when they got to looking at it, to even where the Republicans are saying, oh my God, how did this become what it became in the end? So for all of us, there was no question in our mind that what needed to be done was that we were not going to take that vote. All I had to do was think of all of you, and that's in all honesty. I had to think of all of you, and there was no question that we were not going to take that vote because we had seen all session. Every time we took a vote, it didn't matter how much we debated, how much we talked, how much we pled, and how much we were your voice at the Texas House. When those votes were cast, they were cast against all of us. And that's what would have happened with SB 7. So I don't know what's already been said, but I am just so happy to be here. I actually just drove in from Austin and just got into Houston, so I'm glad I got to see it.
Senator Boris Miles from Senate District 3 and Senator regards. Let's give a shout out to Senator Boris Miles in Senate District 13. He sends his regards. He is fighting with us.
Real quick, Miss T is not here today, Sophronia Thompson, but one thing she said, because we were asked all the time, would we break quorum again? And she says, we're in a battle, and we're not going to lay our weapons down.
All right, we're coming up to the end of our program, and I want to make sure that we recognize some folks who are here, who won't be speaking, but have also made this moment possible. Your Harris County Democratic Chairwoman, Delilah Ago Otogili, is here. Delilah, where are you? She's over here. Delilah, raise your hand. Thank you for what you're doing. Here she is right here. Delilah, thank you. The Vice Chairwoman of the Texas Democratic Party, Carla Braley, is here as well. Dr. Braley, thank you for being here, for what you do. Eliz Markowitz, who ran for the State House in Fort Bend, gave it the fight of her life, did that for all of us, is here as well. So we want to thank her. And then I've got Coretta from Black Voters Matter is here as well. And I promise you folks, I've got a very special surprise speaker that's coming up right now. First, let me turn, I'm sorry, was that Gina Kalani who's back there as well? Former State Rep Gina Kalani, elected in 2018, fought her heart out in 2020. I hope is going to be back after in 2022. Thank you, Gina, for being here. All right, is Bishop Dixon with us? Okay. Is Chris Hollins with us? All right. So many have said that the reason that SB 7 was written in the first place is because of the success that we enjoyed here in Harris County. Drive-through voting, 24-hour voting, voter super centers, ballot tracking applications, making it easy on literally every eligible voter to cast that ballot. And the man who led that effort is none other than our next speaker, Chris Hollins. Chris, come on up.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor O'Rourke. Pardon me. Thank you, Congressman O'Rourke. Congratulations, Justice. What's going on? It is hot, isn't it? But we're still here. There's a reason that we're here. The reason that we're here is because democracy, as we know it, the concept of the American dream, the concept of a free country is under attack at this exact moment. And we are here because we believe in that concept, and we are going to do everything that we can, blood, sweat, and tears, and heat, to get in the way of anything that would stop us from exercising the fundamental right to vote in this country. Now, 2020, so much has happened in the last year. But obviously one of those things was the election that took place last November. And at that time, as we were planning and preparing for that election, we were fighting a deadly virus, a pandemic that took so many lives and so many livelihoods. And at the county clerk's office in Harris County, Texas, we took it upon ourselves. It was our duty, our responsibility, to ensure that every registered voter in Harris County, regardless of your color, regardless of your class, regardless of what part of town you lived in, regardless of your religion, regardless of the language that you were comfortable speaking, that if you were one of those 2.5 million registered voters, that you had the opportunity to cast your ballot, to make your voice heard. And not only to do that, but to do so safely, and to do so conveniently, and to do so with the peace of mind that your vote was going to be counted. And we did that. Our office, with the support of public servants across the county, with the support of more than 11,000 volunteers, many of whom I know are with us right here today, we brought democracy to Houston and Harris County. We endured, perhaps not heat waves like this, but we endured the hot and the cold to ensure that people could vote at drive-through voting locations. And nearly 130,000 of our neighbors cast ballots that way. We extended voting hours so that folks who are stocking shelves at Kroger and H-E-B at 2 and 3 in the morning, our first responders who are clocking in at 5 and 6 a.m., the folks out at the Port of Houston, our welders and electricians who get off in the middle of the night, our teachers who were staying in the classroom until 9 and 10 p.m. to make sure the students are getting a world-class education right here in Houston. We made sure that they could cast a ballot at a time that was convenient for them and their families. And more than 15,000 people right here in Harris County took us up on that and cast ballots during 24-hour voting. We sent applications to vote by mail to the 400,000 seniors, those 65 years of age and up, who were most at risk during the time of COVID-19. And we gave them the opportunity, if they would like to vote by mail. And we had nearly 200,000 people actually vote by mail right here in Harris County. And of course, for everybody else who was going to vote in person, we wanted you to have the opportunity to vote safely and conveniently as well. And so we tripled the number of early voting locations across Harris County. In every single quadrant, every precinct, we made sure that you were 3 times as likely to have a voting center near your home, near your place of business, near your child's school, near your church, or your place of worship. And the people of Harris County showed out. Nearly 1.7 million Harris County residents, Republicans and Democrats, it doesn't matter, came out to participate in our democracy. And that is what we are fighting for right now. And everything that we did is under attack. Not only are they trying to make drive-through voting illegal, not only are they trying to make extended hours voting illegal, not only are they trying to make proactive sending to our seniors of vote by mail applications illegal, but they're trying to do so much more. They're trying to make voter intimidation legal. They're trying to enable brigades of white supremacists to come into our communities and keep our people from casting ballots and participating in American democracy. And we will not stand for that, period. And so we owe a debt of gratitude to the folks who were just standing up here. The Democrats in the State House and the State Senate who pulled out every parliamentary tactic, everything that they could do to amend, to call points of order, to delay, and ultimately to walk out of the state capitals to make sure that democracy was preserved, if only for a short time here in Texas. But they need our help. Republicans have the votes. Let's make no bones about this. Republicans have the votes in the State House, in the State Senate, and in the governor's mansion to pass voter suppression laws, and they plan to do that. And so we need the help of so many people. We're asking for help from D.C. We're asking for the U.S. Senate to pass H.R. 1 and H.R. 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. But we don't know if that's coming, in all honesty. And so what we need is for each of you to take a stand. Each of you and your family members and your neighbors to take a stand. To get more Texans registered to vote, to share information about how to vote with every one of the folks that we know in our communities. Whether it's 2022, whether it's this fall when we have important local measures up on the ballot, every single election is important, not just the president. I'm so glad we got, that orange guy up out of there. But that's not it for democracy. Because the further you go down that ballot, the closer you get to your own doorstep. When we're talking about our schools, when we're talking about our roads, when we're talking about our trash getting picked up, when we're talking about healthcare, that comes all the way down the ballot. And so every single election is important. And we're not fighting just for the opportunity to cast a ballot every 4 years. We're fighting for the opportunity to make our voices heard day in and day out. To choose the next generation of leadership in this country, in this state, in this city. To choose the policies that are going to affect our lives and those of our parents and those of our children. And ultimately to ensure that America remains a free country. That's what we're here for today. And so thank you all for being here. Thank you for everything that you've done today. Thank you for everything that you're going to do. It is an honor for me to stand alongside each and every one of you in this fight. We have a long ways to go, and we have to keep on going. Thank you very much.
All right, Chris Hollins, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that we will be seeing much more of him, or maybe someday on a ballot somewhere close to home, okay? All right, I promised you that I had a special guest. Before I bring her up, I want to recognize someone who has walked the talk, put their money where their mouth is, has helped to organize voters all around the state. Claude Cummings, ladies and gentlemen, is right here to your left. Claude, thank you for being here. So, you have heard just how bad this voter suppression is across the country. You've heard what SB 7 would do to black voters, to minority voters, to voters with disabilities, to voters in big cities, to voters who are working shift jobs, which means they get off at 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. and if SB 7 passes, won't be able to vote. Well, there is a federal answer to this voter suppression, and it is called the For the People Act. It is House Bill 1, and it's Senate Bill 1, and Joe Biden has said if it lands on his desk, he will pass it. There is a reason that this bill, which would stop voter suppression in Texas, which would end the practice by which members of Congress choose their own voters instead of the other way around by implementing nonpartisan redistricting commissions. There's a reason that this bill that would reduce the power of big money in our politics, and there's a reason that this bill, which would make Election Day a national holiday, passed the House of Representatives. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to the reason that it passed the House of Representatives and is now in the Senate, our great leader, Sheila Jackson Lee, Congresswoman of this great community. Sheila.
Thank you so very much. It's me. I'm just trying to be a COVID-19 beat it to death example, so please forgive me. I am honored and privileged to be here. I've had an opportunity to sit in that corner next to Virginia, and Virginia's told me that she is a victim of Trump, but a good victim. She said she was in another affiliation just about a year or so ago, or maybe not active a year or so ago, and Donald Trump just drove her, not over the edge, but into this room with all of you. Give her a very big hand. Give Virginia a very big hand. And then Rhonda might have had to go, but there are so many different people in this room. I have to acknowledge them. Rhonda is the mother of Kimberly Vaughn. Kimberly Vaughn lost her life at Santa Fe. And Rhonda has been on the battlefield, not only for her child, but for so many other children. We love Rhonda very much. I'll be introducing the Kimberly Vaughn storage gun bill. I wonder if anybody can be against a storage bill, just store your guns, in the upcoming congressional session to announce it. Beto, thank you so very much. I've been given the task of combination of giving you where we are in Washington, giving you a very sobering, there you are, my brother, giving you a very sobering moment, giving you a reality moment. Thank you, Lydia, for speaking for those who are challenged but not denied their right to vote. Thank you so very much. You are my hero and my shield. My friends, I want to say to you today that in fact, Democrats have to save America. That's why I'm here today. Democrats have to save America. We've had wonderful, inspirational, uplifting messages. We have seen the great history and leadership of the state legislators. I want to call every one of their names, give them a big hand. They walked out, they took their feet and they walked out. We've seen the state senators. They stood there until they couldn't do it anymore because of a procedural thing in the state Senate that said we are going on. You've seen the mayor of the city of Houston stand up to those who wouldn't stand with us to say, why shouldn't we as businesses just say everybody should vote? And when they wouldn't do it, the mayor walked as well, Judge Hidalgo walked as well, on behalf of all of us. We thank Commissioner Ellis for recognizing to be part of every change that we can make. So here's where you come in. America is now bowing down to the altar of a deposed president, impeached twice. He looms the halls of Congress. He finds himself in meeting rooms. He's whispering in the ears of the minority leader of the United States Senate. And when it comes to the rights of the American people, he is present to put up his hand and he says, stop. I don't represent the American people. In fact, I don't care about them. I represent myself. I want to promote myself. I want them to get what they need, and I'm going to win. Democrats, are you going to let this kind of insidious behavior win the day? I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I am in the district that I have the privilege of representing, the historic 5th Ward, Peninsula. I am so proud of Beto O'Rourke, who had such a good time here when he ran. He said, I got to get back to 5th Ward, Texas. So let me say something. As a member of the United States Congress, I don't care what neighborhood you live in and what your party affiliation. My job is to represent you. It is to do your constituency work. It is to go to you when you're in need. It's to help the veterans. That's what America is. Democrats, we have to reclaim that. We have to ensure that those who take the oath of office will represent all of us and will not deny us our rights. And that is what is happening now. Your right to vote, your right to vote is your voice, it is your agenda, it is your representation, and when it is denied, you have no voice, you have no agenda, you have no representation. That is why the work of Beto O'Rourke going to ensure that people are registered every single place in the nooks and crannies. He called me today. He was coming in from Lubbock. He was at the beach. He could have been registering people in Galveston, but he was in Lubbock. And he was registering people to vote. So my serious message to you is, the heroic state legislators gave us another amount of time. Let us not lose it. Because let me tell you what I'm facing in Washington. Under the leadership of Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic caucus, with about a 5-vote margin, we won and voted on H.R. 1. We got it through. We fought like heck and we got it through. But right now, I am stuck in the Senate because the minority leader insists that the only, Lord, God he has is a deposed president that has been impeached twice. I cannot allow that moral character to be the character of America. We must stand up and create our own morality. We must redefine who America is. And let me say this to you. Just as an aside, aren't we proud of Joe Biden overseas creating America? Thank you, President Biden. So let me tell you how important Beto O'Rourke's work is. In 2020, we were just dancing. I know I saw you dancing. We had elected a president of the United States and a vice president. And you know what's good about that? None of us are perfect. But there's something all of our mothers have taught us and our dads. There's something about character and integrity. And even if you make a mistake or two, you have a mishap, if you've got morality and character and integrity, all of us can say, I got your back. That's what they had. But what we did is we got so excited we dropped off. And so we lost some Senate seats. We were not supposed to lose those seats. We were supposed to have about a 54 vote margin in the United States Senate because you voted for change, did you not? Don't you hear? You worked like heck in Texas, and let me say this, I thank you, we almost got there. Joe Biden recognized it, he knows it. He appreciates you, but we dropped off, and here's where we are. Let me just say this as I bring up Beto O'Rourke. This is why he is not at home. This is why his wife is coming with him. His children are looking for him because he has determined we can't drop off. So let me tell you, yesterday I spent time, somebody might be here from Humboldt. I spent time yesterday was Saturday, I spent time in between graduations, and by the way, you can be proud of the 2021 class. They survived, they are you are there, give them a very big hand. I spoke at about 10 graduations yesterday. I know how to give a bionic speech, I'm going to give one right now. But I went to the gingerbread daycare. Now many of us stop by daycare centers. We say we're finished with that. Our children are out and gone. We're not going to be going by a daycare center, but let me tell you this. She takes those children of essential workers, the grocery store workers, that's who comes. She's got a baby that's born in April of 2021. The mother had to go to work. And that baby is at this daycare center. And you know what? I stand with Joe Biden to be able to add infrastructure, the care economy, that people are taking care of the elderly, the disabled, our children. How dare you? How dare you? That's what happens when we don't vote or we don't have registration. Over this weekend, guns and death in Austin, Cleveland, Chicago, Savannah, and the list goes on this weekend. I'm not taking your guns away. I live in Texas. I know the Second Amendment. I'm just trying to say, do we need a permitless gun law so that we can have more folk just jumping out the window with a gun and coming after us? This is what happens when we don't vote and we are not registered. Sensible gun laws. Universal background check. Stuck in the United States Senate. The minority leader saying not on his watch. Where is the morality? Democrats have to be able to bring it up. Where is, in this midst of the pandemic and this increase in domestic violence, where's the Violence Against Women Act that I wrote? Stuck in the United States Senate. Violence Against Women Act. Where is the support for the American Jobs Plan that will include the care industry, climate, infrastructure that is expansive, build back America so that we can compete with the Chinas and Europe and be the leader as Joe Biden did just a few hours ago, showing Europe that we can lead. That's what we want to do. That's why we need to dig deep. Don't let anyone say that Democrats cannot lead. Don't let anyone say that the members of Congress that happen to be Democrats don't represent all of their constituents. That's why we don't want them elected. Don't say that if he wanted to be senator or governor, that Beto O'Rourke could not represent the entire state of Texas. So I'm here today. I had this roll call as I bring him up. I wanted you to understand, we cannot divide ourselves along the lines of people of color and others. I refuse to allow myself or any of you to do that. If we pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, it is a civil rights bill for all Americans. You know what? There are 10 states that have that bill, and the police are just as vigorous, strong, supportive, and defending and protecting as anywhere else. This is not an anti-police bill stuck in the United States Senate. Stuck in the United States Senate. Bills that say our history should be denied. Why shouldn't I know about Pilgrim's Pride? Teach me about Pilgrim's Pride. Why shouldn't I know that there was slavery, the original sin? Why can't I know about Cesar Chavez, who helped the farm workers? Why can't I know about what happened in Vietnam or the South Pacific? Why can't I know about the veterans of World War II? Why can't I know about my multiple history? Why can't I know about Seema's history, who comes all the way from Iran and ran for the United States Congress? How dare you deny my history? So, the reason why I wanted to come today to bring up Beto, because I wanted you to understand that voting rights is not just let me go out here and make sure I can get there at midnight and have a polling place open. We do that in H.R. 1. But voting rights is for you to be able to say to America that we will not be looked upon as the remnants and the trash and the leftover of the Donald Trump administration. I am not going to be able to tolerate that. So Democrats, I'm so sorry to put this burden on you. You've got so much to do. We've just got out of the pandemic. You're just getting your businesses open. By the way, you know that the Democrats put all that stuff together. You need to know that. Started under Nancy Pelosi. We got that out and pushed those bills to help you get where you are today. But as you well know, I've got to count on you. I need you. Our leadership needs you. And so as we roll across the state through Beto's great leadership, registering people in all parts of this area and the entire state, from east to west and north to south, as we not ignore the East Texas or West Texas, as we don't ignore the border between Louisiana and Texas, as we go to every nook and cranny, as we come to Fifth Ward with Barbara Jordan, Nikki Leland, walk these streets who believe in that equality, Craig Washington, who empowered us through the criminal justice system, as we fight to help this little owner of the Gingerbread Community Child Care Center to take care of the children of essential workers, as we fight for the American Jobs Plan, as we fight for the American Family Plan, I want you to get to your feet, because you've got an instrument. I say the church, they said an instrument of peace. You got an instrument of change. You got an instrument of movement, power, election, service. Get them out to vote. And that instrument that will help us raise our moral arc of understanding. Let us stand up, those who can't raise your hand. Let us understand that Democrats have to take America and raise America and build America back and make sure that America stands on the moral high ground. The moral high ground. The moral high ground. We will not be denied. We will not be told that our stories cannot be told. And it will be through this man, Baker O'Rourke, who is getting everybody to vote.
Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, everybody. Yeah. Thank you so much. Folks, I'm just so grateful that you came out. As Commissioner Ellis said, it's 100 degrees. The humidity is 1,000%. Yet we're still here, we're with one another because it is that important. And I tell you what, I know full well that what happened in 2018 was primarily because of you, those who are here right now. You know that we traveled to every one of those counties. You got sick and tired of me saying the number 254, but we did it. But when we came here to Harris County, we understood political power. You registered voters, you knocked on doors, you talked to complete strangers and brought them into this democracy. Folks who've been living in this country for 70 years and never voted in an election in their lives, you convinced them that their votes matter. Those who just became citizens in the most diverse city in the United States of America, after they got their citizenship, you made sure that they were registered to vote and you got into the ballot box. And those young people showed up because other young people who are here made sure that they would. And at the end of the day, though we did not beat Ted Cruz in the election, we lost by 2.5%. We were part of something special. We saw the big turnout in a midterm in Texas, since 1970. The greatest youth voter turnout ever, up 500% from the last midterm election. 2 new Democrats elected to Congress, including Lizzie Panel Fletcher from right here in Houston, Texas. 12 new state representatives, changing the balance of power in that institution. And in Harris County, 17 African American women elected to judicial positions. That's what we did together. That's the change that together we made possible. And I tell you that because at the outset of that cycle in 2017, everything that I just described was impossible. There was no way we were going to be able to make it happen. It stood a snowball's chance on this day in Houston of becoming true. But we did it because we believed in one another. We had faith, and we had faith that was supported by action. And action is the best antidote to despair. So when you hear about what we're up against, everything the Congresswoman just described, when you hear what they tried to pack into SB 7 to stop people from being able to vote in their own democracy, know that that's tough, but that we are tougher. That might be a hard road to travel, but we are harder people than that road. Know that they don't believe in us, but we believe in ourselves. And together we're going to make this happen. Am I right on this one? That's right. Last week, we celebrated the 77th anniversary of D-Day. 1944, June 6th. So that meant months before that day, American men from Houston, Texas, and Katy, and El Paso, and all over this country, Republicans and Democrats alike, trained and prepared and got ready to fight fascism and defend democracy. They took trains right here from Houston to the Atlantic seaboard. They took ships across the Atlantic, and once in England, they boarded those troop transport carriers. They would land them on the shores of Normandy 77 years ago, just this last week. Now, every man in those units went over to France, but not every man who got off that troop transport carrier would come back to America, at least not alive. They gave their last full measure of devotion to this country. They swore an oath not to the president, not to a political party, but to the Constitution and preserving this great democracy. So to every veteran, to every Gold Star family, to everyone who's put their life on the line for this country and our democracy, I thank you. You made this day possible. We also, just yesterday, commemorated the 58th anniversary of the assassination of Medgar Evers in Jackson, Mississippi. Medgar Evers, who led the civil rights and voting rights effort in that state and by extension for so much of this country, was just trying to register people to vote. Just making sure that those veterans who served in World War II have the ability to access the ballot box and have a voice in the course that this country would take. And for doing that, the courage of his convictions, like so many other civil rights leaders, he was shot down. He was murdered for this democracy that he sought to expand and defend and protect for everyone. So to every civil rights and voting rights leader right now, I want to thank you for your service to this country. You have made this day possible. Now all of us, we together have inherited the sacrifice and the service and the struggle of those men who served in 1944, of those men and women who served in every war and conflict since then. You and I together have inherited the service, the sacrifice, the struggle of Medgar Evers, Fannie Lou Hamer, and Dr. King, and everyone who put their life on the line because they knew very well they might lose it, to make sure that those of us here today could vote and have an equal share in the success of this country. What we do with this inheritance that was purchased for such a price will define us and this country forever. And this is what we're up against. Not much more than 6 months ago, armed insurrectionists carrying banners of the defeated president and the Confederate battle flag stormed the United States Capitol. The first time that the citadel of democracy had been breached since the War of 1812. 5 people, including a Capitol police officer who put his life on the line for democracy and lost it, were killed in the process. They constructed a gallows in front of the Capitol to hang the then Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. They sought to murder members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats like Sheila Jackson Lee, where they worked in that institution. And but for the courage and bravery and selflessness of those Capitol police officers, they might have had their way. Now some think, because that attack was repelled, that we're okay, that was the end of things. But those who understand their history understand that that might be just the beginning. Because when a big lie, like the one told by the former president about widespread election fraud in the last election, is repeated over and over and over again, it begins to be believed not by thousands, not by millions, but tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions. In 1923, a similarly clownish figure led another insurrection in Germany, another republic with a democratic form of government. And that beer hall coup was repelled, and that insurrection was stopped, and those seditionists were put in jail. But because the big lie kept being told, because so many believed and not enough people stood up to be counted and to speak out and to speak that truth to power, within 10 years that clown was Chancellor of Germany and would bring untold misery, suffering, death, and slaughter to the continent of Europe. And he is the man that brought those men from this community in 1944 to those beaches where so many of them were slaughtered in kind. That is the challenge that we are up against right now. I don't want to make this about politics. I don't care about the Democratic Party. I don't care about the Republican Party. I care about democracy. And folks, we are about to lose it if we don't stand up. That big lie that inspired the insurrection, that big lie trafficked by members of Congress in positions of public trust, like the junior senator who calls Houston his home, who voted to overturn that election after the Capitol was invaded. That big lie that asks us to look to Detroit, to Philadelphia, to Atlanta, to Phoenix, Arizona, to the voters in those communities and in those states that provided the margin of victory for Joe Biden, who happened to be voters of color, black voters in the first 3 cities, Mexican-American voters in the last one. That's where Donald Trump would tell you that there is widespread election fraud in this country. And inspired by that lie, 47 different state legislatures in this country have introduced voter suppression bills just like the one that was considered here in Texas. In Georgia, they passed it. It was signed by the governor, signed no less, under a picture of a plantation with not a single legislator of color. And in fact, when a black state representative knocked on the door, literally to be asked to be let in, she was dragged away in handcuffs in the very place that she works. It's happening in Georgia, it's happening in Florida, it happened in Iowa, and it happened in Montana, and they are pending in 40 more states. If we do nothing, we're not willing to sacrifice and struggle like those who came before, then all of those laws will pass, and this, what Abraham Lincoln called the last best hope of earth, will perish from the planet. And it will be you and me and this generation that lost it, and we cannot have that. Now let me tell you something. Those of you who are following this and care about this, and I gotta think you do or you wouldn't be here right now, you know that the situation looks dire. Though we had the leadership, Congresswoman Jackson Lee, to pass H.R. 1 in the House, though the president has said he'll sign it if it lands on his desk, this bill, the For the People Act, that would stop the voter suppression, that would restore our democracy and protect it for the generations to come, it is stalled out in the United States Senate, and for many, hope is lost. But I'm here to buck us up, and I'm here to tell you what we can do together to make sure that it passes. I'll tell you a story. In 1964, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Andrew Young went to pay a visit on President Johnson, our fellow Texan. And they said, Mr. President, in Houston, Texas, in Jackson, Mississippi, in Atlanta, Georgia, if you're a black man, if you're a black woman, you cannot vote in our elections. That poll tax applies disproportionately to us. That literacy test, it only applies if your color is the same as mine, Dr. King said. How many jelly beans are in the jar before you let me register to vote? They never ask a white voter that question. There are some counties, Mr. President, in Mississippi where African Americans comprise 90% of the population and not a single black voter is on the roll. How can you, they challenged him, call this a democracy when so many of us cannot vote? Mr. President, they asked him, pass the voting rights bill. And President Johnson replied, Dr. King, Mr. Young, you're right. This is wrong what you just described, and I would love to help you, but there is no way that the Congress of the United States of America, especially those Southern Democrats, will ever vote for a voting rights bill. I'm sorry, I'd love to help you, but I don't have the power. Dr. King and Ambassador Young left, and on the way out, a dejected Ambassador Young turned to Dr. King and said, what do we do now? And Dr. King responded, we go out there and we get the president some power. And over the next year,